There we go.
Okay, welcome back to the Moms Ask Why podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Whitney.
And I'm your host, Chelsea Jules. Today we have the pleasure of interviewing Tasha Rosales, a board certified holistic health practitioner and nutrition counselor, owner of Wellness Homemade, nutrition label expert, and creator of Informed Eating, as well as her brand new product, the Elderberry Immunity Boost. Tasha, welcome to the Moms Ask Why podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
We're so excited. So, Tasha, can you describe your why, your journey on becoming a nutrition counselor specializing in food label interpretation?
Yeah. I'll make the story short, but basically I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes at 6 weeks gestation. And when I went to the nutrition portion of, becoming somebody with diabetes at the time, I was basically given some very basic information, and I was told you'll never get through this pregnancy without insulin because you're being diagnosed at 6 weeks gestation. You probably had diabetes, type 2 diabetes prior to this. And basically, good luck. There wasn't a lot of support. There wasn't a lot of help. There wasn't a lot of information on how I should really be eating. It was just kind of here's some pamphlets, here's a video to watch, and go on your merry way. You're never going to make it. And that was just so disheartening to me. I was really emotional about it. I always was somebody, we were junk food junkies. My husband and I just felt very alone in that moment. And so I started to really educate myself on some things. And some of those things started off with, back then I drank Starbucks, right? So looking at things at Starbucks, realizing that Starbucks had these warnings, realizing that Starbucks had more to their drinks than what meets the eye, and then slowly working into reading food labels because it's so important when you have gestational diabetes or type 2 diabetes or type 1 diabetes or any disease is paying attention to the ingredient list and at the time, the carbohydrates. And so I started just noticing things like, why is this in my food? What is dextrose? What is, any of the ingredients, why is that in my food and how is it affecting me? And so I slowly started informing myself on what these things were and how they affected my body, how they affected my blood sugar. I still check my blood sugar to this day.
Do you
Not as
wear one of the?
I have.
Okay.
I don't check it as consistently because I know my body so well and I know what I'm eating. And my annual visits, it's like my A1C is pristine, my fasting blood sugar is pristine. So it's like I don't feel the need to check it all the time anymore. But that really is what the start of me waking up to food labels and really understanding like this is so important to everybody.
And was that
So,
with your first pregnancy that you
mhm.
figured that out? So then with your second pregnancy, did you still have gestational diabetes? That is so interesting.
And they were shocked. They were like,
Yeah.
it is it almost never happens that you're going to have it with one and then not the other. Sometimes you won't have it with the first, but you'll have it with the second. But the fact that you had it with the first and then didn't have it with the second is like almost unheard of.
You
That
were
didn't happen.
basically,
Yeah.
essentially, you were able to reverse gestational diabetes, essentially,
Mhm.
with your diet.
Yeah, well, and having gestational diabetes is a huge red flag that something is metabolically not right, right? Like, yes, our body is already the reason it happens is because our body is being put through so much stress. But the fact that it happened so early on was a huge eye opener of there's something metabolically not right here. And
Right.
so fixing that over 3 years well, 2.5 years, 2 years about between having her and then getting pregnant with the second one. It's
That's
a tell.
That's
amazing.
incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I,
Yeah.
I love that you're mentioning this. And that's kind of why I wanted to clarify because I would love for moms out there that had that with their or with their first pregnancy to
Mhm.
know that you don't have to go that same route that the doctor is telling you the second time. There are things you can do to take control of your health on your
Yeah.
own, which is really
Yeah.
cool.
100%.
Yeah.
And
The last 3 days of my pregnancy were the three highest days of my blood sugar, but they were like, you've already made it this far. We're not going to put you on insulin. And then I ended up being induced anyway. So it was fine.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and how much time after changing your diet, reading food labels, did you notice like an internal shift with your body?
So that's really interesting too. So during this time, I hadn't been as open to the idea of like the seed oils and things like that. So I noticed a difference fairly early on just with changing things for the gestational diabetes. But one thing that I tell people all the time is we had her, I was 25, my husband was 26, and we had one step in our home at the time, one step up, one step, from our living room to our kitchen. And we used to have so many aches and pains that we were like, is this what it feels like to be 80? Like, this is awful. And I can truthfully tell you that we feel better at 42 and 43 than we did at 25. As soon as I removed those seed oils and reduced even more of the ingredients that I was taking, we stopped having joint pain. We stopped having, I mean, I suffer from migraines, but they are significantly less now. My husband, over our journey, this wasn't immediately, but my husband was not super on board at first. I could tell you one time I sent him to the grocery store soon after we had kind of changed things, and he came home and I thought I was going to blow because it was like chocolate milk, like everything I wanted to control. And I'm like, I've been doing so much work, and this is what you do. But what's interesting is he had a lot of gut issues. And I was honestly just sick of him being in the bathroom with two kids at home at this time, right? Because we've already spent time in our journey. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, I can't take this anymore.
I can
And
so relate to
we
that.
started working on his gut health. And honestly, his gut health is so much better now. Like, he has incredible gut health. So, and he noticed when we started working on his gut health and really changing him, when he started really focusing on it too, instead of it mostly being me and the girls, he saw a huge difference in his mood, his overall health, his gut issues, all of those things. So I would say within, I don't know, I mean, some people see a difference within like a week. They just start feeling better. But as you go on, you feel better and better and better. So it's hard to put a time limit on that.
And you
Yeah.
mentioned seed oils, and I want to touch on seed oils for a little bit because some people, it's kind of controversial. Some people are like, seed oils are great and they're beneficial for your diet. And, others say that seed oils are very harmful. So give us your honest professional take.
Okay. So this is going to be controversial, I'm sure, because here's the thing. When you look at the studies that were done back then, what it is that 1 to 1.5 tablespoons is what created the benefit. But as humans, we see a benefit in something and we overdo it. It's kind of like when we had the acai berry blow up a couple years ago, and it's like you're eating chocolate covered acai in your acai bowls and everything else. It blows up. Well, unfortunately, we consume so much of them because we are consuming so many ultra processed foods that they are causing these issues in our body, right? So the ultra processed foods, are ruining our gut health, which they also have seed oils in them, right? So we're over consuming all of these seed oils, which directly negatively affect our gut health. Because they affect our gut health, they start creating inflammation in the body. It's not, oh, they create inflammation. No, it's because we are consuming them. They are, negatively affecting our gut health because we're eating more than what we were ever meant to consume, right? And some are worse than others, honestly, right? Like canola oil, especially with like the way that it's processed and things like that. I try to avoid that at all costs, right? But I mean, like Chelsea shared the other day, every once in a while you have to run through a drive-through. Like on our way to Disneyland, we always get hungry at the same time, and it's always right where there's only in and out. That's it. There's nothing for miles, right? So it's like I'm going to have them, but I'm not consuming them all day every day. The foods that you're consuming that have these seed oils in it, you shouldn't be consuming them from sunrise to sunset anyways. So there's like this multitude of things that are going on that are causing gut health issues, which is inflaming our bodies in different ways, and it shows up for everybody differently. So do I think seed oils are good? No. But every so often when I go to my dad's house and he has Ruffles chips, I'm going to have some Ruffles chips because they don't come into my home, right? But we're not consuming them all day, every day. That's not what's killing America, is that once a year that you're eating Ruffles chips at dad's. It's that we're consuming them all day, every day. And it's
What
Absolutely.
you're saying is that RFK eating McDonald's once a year, he's going to be okay.
an informed choice. But
Right.
you can't make an informed choice if you don't actually educate yourself, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, how do food manufacturers use marketing tactics to potentially confuse? So, let's say someone's listening, they're like, wait, Ruffles are bad for you.
Mhm.
Kind of can someone look out for? If they're shopping the aisles, what are these misleading claims that food companies are making that kind of confuse the public?
All natural, baked, no sugar, low sodium, light, fat free, basically anything on the front of a package. Don't trust, like I always say, the front of the package is for marketing and entertainment, if you will, and the back of the package is for factual information. You're not getting anything from the front of a package except for entertainment. They're just trying to entertain you and entertain the idea of a healthier option because they do know that you want a healthier option. They do know what the majority of people are looking for. And there are trends like 2025, the huge trend is going to be protein. You're going to see a lot of ultra processed protein items. Everything's going to have protein in it because they know that that's what it's looking for, that they know that's what you're looking for. So on the front of a package, you're even if it's a low amount of protein, I guarantee they're gonna start talking about protein on the front of those packages. So anything that has these like strong marketing claims and strong, hey, this is low sodium, right? Who are they going for? They're going for the person that was told at the doctor's office that they need low sodium. No sugar. They're going for somebody who's looking out for their sugar, number one. Number two, maybe it's type 1 or type 2 diabetic that they need to, really market to. So anything like that that's saying none of this in here, you really just need to like let's look at the back and see what's actually going on. Is it really no sugar or is
Right.
it full of, artificial sweeteners?
Artificial. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that you say that about the protein. It kind of triggered something in my brain because my entire TikTok feed right now is people eating steak. And I
Yeah.
feel like that is totally the trajectory of like what is the next trend? It's going to be high protein. And you're so
Mhm.
right. I even see people eating like those, protein bars, for example. And I know there's some cleaner options and there's some that are just probably straight candy bars. And
Mhm.
but it's high protein, right? So it's people are kind of like, well, it's high protein.
Yep.
So this is going to be great for me to grab. So I already see that happening. So look at you. You already are like
Yeah.
totally saying what's going to happen in the next couple months. So speaking of that, like if somebody is in the grocery store and they're browsing, the aisles, how can they quickly identify like a potentially misleading claim or how can they understand what they are reading when they do turn that box around and look at the ingredients and read the label?
That one's hard because it can go into so many different ways. It can go into like fat free, low fat, 7% fat. It could go into protein, especially that's going to be a trend in 2025 for sure. I think anything on the front of a label is misleading, to be honest with you. So I always say just turn it right around and then look. And you guys probably know, but it's like look at those ingredients. If you see sugar in the first five ingredients, go straight to the sugar content and make sure that you're paying attention to the serving size and understanding how much sugar you're consuming based on the serving size. Um, Look for I always tell people to start with 3 to 5 ingredients. Like start with those because it's hard to say what do I look for or like what to look for, right? It's different for every single person. So somebody with thyroid might have been told to stay away from sulfites, right? So maybe really like you can find that obviously in wine and fermented type things like wine or like balsamic vinegar, but also a lot of seasonings have sulfites in them. So that might be their number one thing. Whereas somebody who has heart disease or high cholesterol or something like that, or whatever the issue is, might be looking at sodium, right? So looking at the back and what some of those additives are, like some of the phosphates are actually to replace sodium, but they're actually not great for our kidneys and things like that. So it just depends on what you're dealing with. My personal opinion, the first like 3 to 5 things I would look for are seed oils. I would significantly reduce that, if not eliminate completely. Like it shouldn't be something that you're consuming all the time. I would look for dyes. I would look for sugar. I would look for the main added sweeteners are going to be dextrose and maltodextrin. I would look for those as your like first two, and then get familiar with more as you go on. Um, and then maybe the gums, just because we're over consuming those gums and they're just wreaking havoc on our gut. So everything that's in those processed foods are just wreaking havoc on our gut, which is, inflaming the heck out of us. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I would, that one's a hard one to answer because it really depends on the person.
Yeah, and that really would be like the benefit of working with someone like you, Tasha. Really, like they could come with their specific, issues that they're having, and you could say,
Hmm.
well, this is what you should target, or this is what you should start focusing on when you are at the grocery store.
Yeah.
I know that this was, this is kind of off topic, but I would love to hear your take on dyes, kind of how we were just talking about seed oils. Like I actually saw, um, a video the other day of somebody saying that, all of these people that are trying to scare you into avoiding dyes are just basically fear mongering you, and that in other countries they are consuming dyes that are the same as in the US. What are your thoughts on that?
Dyes are a hard no in our house. They're a hard no. I'm not going to buy it if it has dyes in it. Now, I do have teenagers. I'm not going to say that they're 100% perfect, and that, but both of my girls are very cognizant, and dyes are one thing that they do pay attention to. Now, if there's Skittles at a friend's house, I'm sure they're going to grab a handful, right?
Yeah.
But dyes are a hard no. I don't bring them into our home. One red dye 40 makes me have a horrible headache.
Yeah.
It makes my mom have a horrible headache. So if you don't believe it, do your own experiment. The best experiment you can do is on yourself and your family. So if you don't believe that food dyes have a negative effect on your child or on you, let them consume food dyes for a week and then take them away.
And see the
Notice the
difference.
changes,
Yeah.
right? It's the only way that people are really gonna like, oh, there's studies that they're fine, and there's studies that they're not fine. Personally, I think that we're gonna see food dyes disappear in the next 5 to 10 years. I don't think that we're gonna see red 40, yellow number 5, yellow number 6, red 3 is already going out. It's been in and out a couple of times, but I don't think we're gonna see them. I think that moms are speaking up, they don't want it, and there are other ways to do it. And with these certain states that are starting to have stricter regulations around them, these companies are going to have to either create two products, or they're going to have to just do away
Yeah,
with it. My guess is right now they're trying to figure out what is cheaper. Is it cheaper to have two products,
for
or is it
sure.
cheaper just to make one?
Right.
But my take on food dyes is they're a hard no.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We don't need them. They're not natural in any way. They're made with petroleum. They're unnecessary.
Yeah. There's no nutritional benefit
No,
at
no,
all.
there's nothing positive for it. And when you weigh out the positives versus the negatives, all you're doing is showing these food companies that you need ultra processed foods
Right.
to that are bright and colorful to appeal to you. But strawberries are super colorful, and you know,
And
blueberries are super colorful. So
I think we've seen that with the Kellogg's movement,
Mhm.
like moms are speaking up, moms are asking why. Why is this in our children's food? And kind of to segue into that, I want to ask your professional opinion. So, in the United States, childhood cancer incidence rates from 1976 to 2013 averaged a 1% cancer increase every year. Do you
Mhm.
think our food system is partially to blame for that?
I do think that it's partially to blame. I also think that we are so confused as human beings on what we're supposed to eat, how we're supposed to eat. We've been kind of conditioned, especially our age. I mean, I think I am a little bit older than you guys. So our age group, it's kind of really the first where ultra processed foods has really been so abundant, because it really didn't I mean, in the 50s is really when it kind of started to we started to see more. But growing up in the 80s, and having those ultra processed foods, they're just they're all full of carbohydrates. We know that balanced blood sugar is a huge contributor to disease. But we're consuming these ultra processed foods that are high in carbohydrates, high in sugars, high in ingredients that our bodies have never been, human bodies have never really been exposed to. And we're just saying, oh, they're generally regarded as safe. And then you have moms and families that are just so busy that they just grab what they think is healthy and they give it to their families and their kids. And it's not that they're not trying to do their best. They are trying. I don't believe anybody gets up in the morning and says, hey, let me, you know, just feed my family and myself the worst foods. I think that people are truly trying, but we're so blind to the food label and understanding that, we don't need most of the stuff that's in our pantry or in our refrigerator if we just kind of stick to the basics and then have some of those as healthier options as kind of an every once in a while type thing, like crackers or chips. We don't even really buy chips anymore in our house because we don't need it. So yes, I do think that our food system is contributing to the health crisis in general in America, not even just to childhood cancer, everything. I think it's
Right.
contributing to everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely think like the convenience movement, like every time I talk to moms, because I talk to a lot of moms that have
Yeah.
kids with speech delay, or they have sensory issues, and a lot of the moms, there's such a mental and physical load on moms nowadays, I feel like, and it makes it just so easy for us to go to convenience. Like
Hmm.
that's where I started. Honestly, I was like, this is convenient. I need to work. I
Hmm.
need to get my house cleaned. I need to get the laundry done. There's just so many things that makes the convenience such a like, easy to grab um thing to go for, right? Kind of
Yeah.
like this is actually a question we wanted to ask you is once upon a farm pouches, go-go squeeze pouches, there's a lot of misinformation, just because it doesn't have, a ton of added sugar in it, it still does contain sugar. What are
Hmm.
your thoughts on things like that, those pouches for kids?
So some of them aren't so bad, and others I look at them and I'm like, there's so much sugar and stuff in this. Like, how are people not seeing that? And again, it goes back to people not reading the food label because they don't know what they're looking at the front, right? They're seeing that it's all fruits and vegetables and this, that, or the other. I can tell you with our grandson in general, he didn't eat a ton of those. He ate a couple of those. We're actually finding that he does have some food um, texture issues. He definitely has some texture issues. So we do have to sometimes supplement for him. Like you see me always talking about Scout bars with him. Those saved my stepdaughter's life.
Mhm.
Like he will eat that, no questions asked. So but she's really trying to stick to like whole real foods and hoping, that he will get through this. And he is doing really, really well. So back to the food, like pouch things, I think that they're a convenience item. I feel like they can come in handy at times, but if we can really just focus on the real foods and the textures and things. When I was a preschool teacher, which was several years, I mean, probably about 10 years ago now, the kids that did the best in the classroom were always the ones that came with real food. Like, and that was when baby led weaning kind of first started. Well, I don't think it first started, but really became popular. And I remember thinking, this is so strange. Like, I can't believe I have to give this kid this like full whatever it is. Like, they're
Yeah.
going to choke. Thank God I'm CPR certified, right? Like, they're going to choke. But it actually worked out really well. And those kids honestly got sick less. They had better like days in the classroom and just overall better. So I know that convenience is easier, but is it actually easier if your kids are not feeling well all the time, they're moody, they're having temper tantrums, whatever it is? Then to me I'd rather have my kid feeling better, stabilized mood and things like that than the convenience of those other products because those products actually have a lot of things in them that we often don't notice.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I can totally relate to that. Having myself, I worked in
Yeah.
schools for years as a psychologist.
Yeah.
And so we deal with a lot of behaviors, right? And so it's so interesting the kids that are sent to school with a homemade lunch
Mhm.
versus even the kids that got the school lunch, because we know school lunches aren't necessarily as nutritious as we would like them to be as moms.
Right.
It was almost like a vicious cycle. You know,
Mhm.
you're concerned about behavior, but then they go to lunch and then they have behaviors again, and it's like it does make you wonder, you know, does the food impact their behaviors and their overall ability to function? And it sounds like definitely it does.
It's really interesting. I'll tell you really quickly. So my husband, I used to make him do all the field trips because I'm kind of like an introvert and I just couldn't like I'm like you got to do these. You're more fun than I am. Like I'm not that fun. And so he would go on these field trips with my girls and he went on one field trip and he had 3 or 4 girls in his group. And he's like one of the girls and he had never paid attention before, right? And my daughter's in like first or second grade. This was Kendall, our youngest. She's now 13. So first or second grade, he goes, this little girl had an Uncrustable, Oreos, and something else, and a juice. He was like, she was hungry all day. He's like, I couldn't control her. He's like, and I'm a dad, like with girls, right? Because they put him with girls because
Yeah.
he's like, it's not like I have a boy, and like I'm like, doing this with boys. He's like, so he's like, it's a different kind of pressure when you're a dad with girls at a field trip, right? And he's like, I just couldn't believe the way that she got like after having the Oreos. It was just this pure chaos. And I didn't know how to handle it. I had to act, he knew one of the moms that was there. So she came over to help. And it
Oh
was
my
just like,
gosh.
he was like, it was such an eye opener for him that everything that we were doing was really for the greater good, if
Yeah,
that makes sense.
absolutely.
Totally.
What you're saying.
And I want to jump into your business, but I have one last question about like convenience and food because I think it's such an important topic for parents. So there was a consumer report a few months ago making claims that popular healthy snacks, this one was specifically focusing on puffs,
Mhm.
have tested high for lead. What would you tell a nervous mom who has this in her pantry and is like, should I be throwing out all of these puffs in my pantry or things that, people are saying are really high in lead?
I think Chelsea and I probably feel the same way. I was so excited when I saw Chelsea post about this. Here's the thing. Once again, it's a convenience item that shouldn't be consumed all of the time.
Right.
It should be minimally consumed, right? It's a treat every so often. I feel like puffs are kind of like a segue into chips, right? So we're teaching our kids to just do this all the time. Would I run from it? No. Why? Because if your child is eating a high fiber diet and they're eating good, healthy foods, your body is actually their bodies are, those fibers bind to the heavy metals and help you excrete them. So there's that. Two, the other thing is that, well, you have two options. Like there's a reason, in my opinion, that a lot of these other companies aren't. One, when you have real foods, you're going to have higher risk of lead contamination and the cadmium and stuff. And yes, we should be cognizant of it. But at the same time, then you have these, lab made crackers, chips, things like that are fueling you with all of these ingredients that aren't actually that there aren't anything. Your kids are still hungry because there's literally nothing to them. They're
Right.
just carbohydrates. That's it. And that's why our kids go through them. So would I run from Siete chips or any of those puffs or anything? No. Like I said, we don't really buy a lot of chips anymore, but if I'm going to buy chips, I'm going to buy those because we eat a balanced diet. We're eating fiber filled foods. That's the most natural way to eat a chip or a puff is with something made with cassava flour or something like that. It's no, I wouldn't run from it.
There's a time and a place for them.
Exactly. There's a time and a place for all of them. And I get it. Sometimes you're like, just open the bag and give it to the baby or the kid or
Yep.
Oh my
whatever.
gosh, yes.
That was me yesterday.
Yes. And
Like,
it
take
happens.
it.
Yeah.
You
It's like,
know, you know what I find so funny, Tasha, is you and I will post similar things, right? Because,
mhm.
we want to make sure that our audience and the people that we're working with are informed. And anytime I put something Siete in my cart, I get comments that are, watch out for those. There's high
Yep.
lead content. Can you imagine if I put a bag of Doritos in my cart? Nobody would say anything, which
No.
is so funny to me.
Yeah. And that's why I adore following you because you're just making the most informed choices possible every single day. And it's just like I've gotten to know you over the last year by following you and stuff. And it's just so like refreshing to you're braver than I am, honestly. But you can take it a lot better than I can take it. But I mean, as far as I can tell, anyways. But I think it's just very disturbing that people are like, I mean, I was getting so much, I don't even want to go into it about certain stuff the other day. And it's just like, oh my God, do you even hear yourself? Like you are
Right.
literally trashing somebody for doing better. You're trashing companies that are doing better. Why are we not trashing Doritos? I mean, Kellogg's is getting its its own session right now of trash. But for the most part, most of these food companies aren't getting any crap. It's these small companies that are
Yeah.
doing better that it's like, no.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, you would get
And yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I could
You
go
would get
in.
nothing if you put Doritos in your nobody would say anything.
No, nobody would say anything if I put goldfish or Doritos. There would be no, comment. I mean, I would say it's the number one comment I get anytime I'm at Costco and I put those in my cart. And I'm kind of like you as well. Like we used to rely heavily on that when I was trying to get my kids through picky eating because look, I would rather serve them a siete tortilla chip than a Doritos chip that has food dye and preservatives and all sorts of things that I can't. I mean, it's this long of a list of
Yeah.
ingredients that are in there. And I just know that I wouldn't get any comments. And my number one comment when I go to Costco now and put those in my cart are you need to watch out for that. There's high lead content and it's crazy to me. I agree with you. It's like, okay, let's stop for a second and think logically. Like, what is going to be better to put in my body? Is it going to be cassava root, flaxseed, chia seed, and avocado oil? Or is it going to be red dye 40, canola oil, and wheat flour that's not going to be organic, probably full of glyphosate.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, I love your take on that.
Yeah, that's why I see. So I always fall right in the middle of things. Like you have to think logically about things, like the seed oils. When I was talking to you about those earlier, of course, I would love for everybody to not consume them, but at the same time, it's like, okay, remember there is a threshold, and we shouldn't be consuming these this often, right?
Hmm.
It's the same situation, and yeah, people get so fired up about these healthier options. And like I said, my grandson, he's having some issues himself right now with some of the food. And sometimes we just have to give him a Scout bar because sometimes he's here all day and he doesn't want to eat anything that we give him. Last week was a better week. We didn't end up having to pull out the Scout bars, but some weeks we need the Scout bar,
Yeah,
right? I want him to go home fed. I don't want his mom to pick him up and be like, cool, he didn't eat anything all day. So we need those
right,
sometimes.
right.
And I'm sure you and I have texture things too. All three of us probably have texture things where I want something really
Absolutely.
crunchy and salty sometimes.
Yep.
They're human beings too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have to remind myself of that sometimes because I do keep my kids' diet so strict just because, just like you were saying, like do the experiment with your kids. See if they eat. I mean, that's the same with mine. If I feed my kids something that has added sugar, they're bouncing off the walls because they don't get it too often. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I have to be, I have to look at them as, okay, they're kids. They are going to want a sweet treat here and there. They are going to want something salty here or there, and just having those options available, like a Scout bar, is going to
Mhm.
be incredible for them.
Yeah.
So I
And they're going
totally
to be
agree.
exposed to it if they go to traditional school, if they
So
go
true.
anywhere, your kids are going to, my kids are exposed to it. My
Yeah.
kid, like, that's why I said my kids are not perfect, but they're well informed and they
Yeah.
know what they're not going to have, what is a hard no, and they know what they're going to end up having. I mean, there's sometimes more my kids are like, oh yeah, I got this as a prize today. It's been in my back, or yeah, today, but I'm not going to eat it. Or hey, I'll find something in their backpack. I'm like, oh, what is this? Where'd you get this? Oh, I got it as a prize, but I didn't eat it, because
Oh, they know.
it wasn't they
Yeah.
didn't eat it because they knew mom was going to be mad. They still I'm sure they put it in their
Yeah.
backpack with full intention of eating it at some point. But A, they forget about it, and B,
Because
they
they're not
know.
addicted to it, right?
Mhm.
It's almost like they're not like, oh my gosh, they can't stop thinking about it. Whereas other kids might be, that might be like the addiction to that
So,
Yeah,
sugar.
yeah,
yeah, it's almost like also too, if you never let them experiment, then they don't know how their body's going to feel when they eat it. So
Yep.
if you constantly deny, 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 and you never let your child, and then they grow up to be a teenager and then they have it for the first time, they might try and hide it and hoard it. And it's like, it's
Mhm.
such a fine balancing act for parents. And we're just doing the best we can.
Yep. That's
Totally.
exactly what I was trying to avoid with my
Yeah.
girls is
Right.
them going and just binging and
Yeah.
going. I completely, fully believe that my kids are going to go to college and I'm sure they're going to have a moment, right? But also, my daughter just asked me last week to help her figure out how to cook chicken because she knows she's going to college in a year and a half, right? I,
Oh,
I just
Sweet.
I just told a story in my stories today about how last year we went on a family trip and there were Oreos and there were Chips Ahoy there. They were them and their cousins were all playing cards, and both girls tried both the Chips Ahoy, which they've never had a Chips Ahoy. They have had an Oreo at daycare way back when they were in like before kindergarten actually, because we moved here when my youngest was in first grade. And they both tried them both. They said they both each had one and they couldn't. They were like, first of all, Chips Ahoy, I don't even know what that was. Like, that was so not a cookie. And then the Oreo, they were like, it was just, I mean, it was okay, but that's all they had. That's the goal,
yeah.
right? That's the goal, is that your kids can try that and their palate is at a place where they know that this is not real. Like, we know
Yeah.
what a real cookie tastes like, right? Because we make
Yeah.
them. So
Right.
yeah, we're all just like you guys said, just doing our best, making informed choices and helping them make their most informed choices.
Yeah.
So tell us about your elderberry immunity boost. What made you want to launch it? What was that product like from like launch idea to actual, like, I have the physical product? I'm sure it was a labor of love. Tell us all about it.
Okay. So originally, okay, so this goes back like 5 years. I was trying to find a manufacturer for a protein powder. I have been looking for manufacturers for a really long time. It was really, really hard to find. Everybody wants to use either white label something or they want to use ingredients that I was not up for. I interviewed a ton of manufacturers. I finally found a manufacturer last late, late winter, early spring. I couldn't do protein powder because it's so incredibly expensive to invest in. And I thought for my first product, we're not going to do that then. Let's do an electrolyte instead. So we started off with an electrolyte, but something happened over the summer. Their company has been growing, so they had to move. And then the person that I was working directly with was on vacation for like 2 weeks. And so I was like, listen, we're way too late into the summer. By the time we get this done, it's going to be winter time or fall time. And my next option, the next thing that I had an idea to do is to take my elderberry syrup and make it more accessible to people. So I did. So we then shifted to, it was originally called elderberry tea, but I felt like it's not really a tea. Like, you're not steeping it or anything. It's literally a powder that you put in. And so I gave them my elderberry syrup recipe. We added a couple of things. We swapped out honey because powdered honey, is made with maltodextrin in order to keep it tasting good. So I was like, well, we can't use that. That's going to be a hard no. So we went with chicory root, a little bit of monk fruit, and then there's a little bit of a citrus sweetener in there. They're all natural, completely 100% natural. Um, the chicory root fiber for me is what really does it. Um, Plus it adds fiber. So that was really important to me. It was so incredibly nice when I was able to take the honey out, which added 2 grams of sugar, and add the chicory root fiber in there, which took the added sugar out. There's no added sugars, but you're getting fiber. So, which is incredibly important for the absorption of nutrients in the body and overall health, right? So that's kind of how it went. Um, and they created a great product. I created a great, I mean, I sent them my recipe. They just had to like take that recipe and formulate it into a powder. I don't know how they did it, but yeah, it was, I mean, no, I don't want to say a simple process. It wasn't a simple process, but it was just hard to get what I wanted understood as far as manufacturers because they want to use all the things.
Hmm.
Stevia is one that they really want to use. So the interesting part with monk fruit is that it has a bitter aftertaste. And that's why you see stevia and monk fruit together a lot of times because they work really well at creating like a good sweet palate. So we had to find something that was going to offset the monk fruit and not make it taste bitter.
And Tasha, when should someone take this product? Should they take it? Can they take it daily? Is this something that, oh my gosh, I have a sniffle. Should I take this now? Like, when should people take it?
So you can drink it every single day. I actually really enjoy like during the testing process, I was drinking it in my big Stanley cup just because I like flavor. I swear as you get older, like by the end of the day, water just sounds awful. And I swear it's
Yeah.
like a menopause thing. Like I'm sick of water by the end of the day. And I'm like, I just need flavor. So I was drinking this a lot during the testing phase. I keep it in there, but you can drink it hot, like when you're not feeling well. You can drink it cooler. You can dilute it more or drink it more condensed. Actually, a girlfriend of mine, we were just saying it would be nice to just like mix it up into an almost shot size glass and just drink it real quick sometimes. You can drink it every day. Like it's got echinacea in it to help ward off illness. And then it has elderberry for when you are sick. So it's really up to you. It can be either or, depending on what you're looking for. It's to me, it's a really great benefit to have in my water because it tastes really good, and I know that it's giving me an immunity boost, basically. So
That's amazing.
Is
yeah,
it
I
safe
think
for kids, Tasha?
it is. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So I know that some people say like maybe not the echinacea, but with the company, first of all, there's such a small amount in there that it would never be not okay for kids. And everything else is perfectly fine for kids. So yeah, it's fine for kids. For kids, it's just one scoop instead of two scoops. Uh, but other than that, it's perfectly safe for everybody.
And where can people buy it?
They can buy it on my website, wellnesshomemade.org. You can also go to my Instagram and there's a link there, or you can comment boost on any of my link posts and it will send you the link to it.
Okay, we have like a few more minutes. Chelsea, should we have Tasha answer some of the questions that the Ask Me Anything box? Everyone asked so many questions. We picked three.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah,
do you,
we put a question box up on the Moms Ask Why Instagram, and
Okay.
we had the followers there submit questions. Are you
Okay.
okay if we go through those?
Yeah. I'm
okay,
nervous.
we could do them quick, but
Okay. Nope,
uh,
you're good. I have time.
first question, how should I be plating my food per meal? How much protein, fiber, carbs, etc.?
This can look different for everybody just because, there's different sizes, all of these things, but a general rule is like 30 to 40 grams of protein. Um, Carbohydrates, I say a general rule is like 30 to 45 grams of carbs, depending on your body and how your body is doing with, glucose, insulin, all of that. So that's something that you can test out kind of. And then fiber, because you want to get for women 25 grams of fiber or more a day. And I think for men, it's like 35. I don't work with as many men, so it's something I have to look up, but 35 maybe grams of fiber a day. So a general rule of thumb, I say, is like 8 to 9 grams of fiber per meal, which in in the beginning seems really hard, but certain things that I find really helpful are like raspberries give me a huge boost first thing in the morning. A cup of raspberries is 8 grams of fiber. So it's like, oh, just throw that in my breakfast. That's super easy. I've got my 7 or 8 grams right there. Avocado can have a great amount of fiber also. So just including fiber in every single meal. I think people think because they're having a salad that that's going to be enough fiber, but unfortunately, just that salad, it's probably not going to have much fiber. So again, general rule of thumb is like 30 to 40 grams of protein, 30 to 45 grams of carbohydrates. This depends on you and again, and how you're dealing with carbohydrates internally. And then I'd say about 8 grams of fiber if you can at each meal. Although some people like to load their fiber at different times. Some people load in the morning, some people kind of load in the evening. It just depends.
This is a side note question, but is fruit easier to digest in the morning? Or is that just false? I saw it somewhere and I was curious.
don't think it's really interesting that you say that. My dad read a book in the 80s, right before I was born, that told him to eat an apple every morning. And he has, I don't think I've ever seen my dad never not eat an apple. For the last 42 years, he's been eating an apple every day. And it was because it's easier to digest in the morning. So I need to look up what this is because this is the second time I've heard it. And I'm like, I don't think so. You would think that you wouldn't want to have fruit alone in the morning just because you're
Right.
spiking your blood
Right.
sugar first thing in the morning. Like I
That's
don't
what I thought
think so.
too, but
I
I
need to
I need
think.
to ask her. We'll
Yeah,
have to
I
report
don't
back on
think
that
there's
one.
much validity to that. I would have to really do some research and find some like really good sources. I don't personally think that that's probably the best thing.
Okay, Chelsea, you want to take the next question?
Yeah. So okay, one of my most asked questions, and I'm sure it is yours too, Tasha, is there a gluten-free bread that does not taste terrible and is not full of filler ingredients that you have found
So
on the market?
Plentiful Health, I think that's what it's called.
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
Kitchen. Plentiful
Mhm.
Kitchen has been the best one in my opinion. Some of them I get so angry. One of them I bought and it literally crumbled when I opened the package. I was
Oh,
so,
yes.
oh my God.
Same.
It's so frustrating. So Plentiful Kitchen, I think I have a link and code actually in my I mean, I'm not trying to, I'm just saying like if it's too,
Yeah, of course.
people are always like, oh, it's really expensive. It can be kind of expensive, but I've even tried, I won't say the brand, but it's a one in the freezer. It's very small. It does,
I know I threw that away this morning. I know exactly which one you're talking
I
about.
couldn't do it. I
My
was like,
husband goes, it's a hockey disc.
yeah.
This
Yeah.
is
That's
all.
the other thing that really upsets me about gluten-free bread. I'm like, is this real life? Like,
And it's
I,
so expensive. So you're like,
it's,
okay, it's
Yeah.
tiny, it's falling apart, and it's expensive.
yeah, it's just so frustrating. I do have, you know, my brother's girlfriend is celiac, so I try to be cognizant, but man, when you buy that stuff, it really ticks me off. I'm like,
I
it's
know.
so yeah, Plentiful Kitchen is has been the best that I've tried. Their bagels are really good too.
I
Okay.
was
And
just
our
gonna say
last
that. Yeah, they
Yeah.
are good. I've tried them as well.
Yeah.
our last Ask Me Anything question. In your opinion, what's the most underrated nutrient dense superfood I should give my kids?
Oh, underrated. Well, superfood is so hard because I feel like all fruits and vegetables are kind of a superfood. Honestly, I'm not going to stick to one. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you that when you see those strange fruits and vegetables in the market, so like there's like the dragon fruit, there's passion fruit, pomelo, all of those things that you don't see all the time, but are just randomly there. So whenever we see passion fruit, for instance, we always grab it. And that's because I want to create diversity in my kids' diet and their life, and their gut. So we always buy when the passion fruit's there. When the dragon fruit shows up, we get some every week. And the passion fruit's expensive, but I'm like, listen, we're creating gut diversity.
Right.
Can't keep consuming the same things. So I hate to say, oh, this is what you should be giving your kids because then I feel like that's all people go to. What I would say is find the diversity.
That's
Like
smart.
take your kids with you if you can. If you can't take them with you or if it's just too much, that's your mom time, then do it yourself, but bring something different home every week and offer it to them. Let them try it, let them explore it, create that gut diversity. Let them know that it's okay that they don't like it. Let them feel safe in trying something and that mom's not going to get mad at them if they do try it. There's things that my girls, I'm like, just try it. My girls are super open and I think it's because I've never gotten mad at them. If you don't like it, then fine, but
Right,
just
Right.
try it.
right.
I would
Yeah.
say anything in the produce department that you see that's new and different, grab it.
Hmm.
That's a really good tip.
Yeah.
And you guys, Tasha is graciously giving away one of her elderberry immunity. We're so excited. So if you go on the Moms Ask Why Instagram at Moms Ask Why, you will see a post. You have to comment what your favorite part of this interview was on that post as a chance to win. You also have to follow Tasha. So Tasha, what are your Instagram handles and all your socials?
My Instagram handle is wellness.homemade. Same thing on Facebook. I am on TikTok, but I'm not on TikTok, if that makes sense.
I feel
I
you.
have an account, but I don't post there. People there are not nice, in my
No,
opinion.
they're not.
They're a little bit more cruel there.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's all I really do on social is mostly Instagram.
Okay. Well, Tasha, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure having you. Check us out. Drop your email at www.momsaskwhy.com. Follow us on Instagram at momsaskwhy, TikTok at momsaskwhy podcast. And as always, like, download, and subscribe, and leave us a review, you guys. We want to know what you thought of this episode. And join us next week for more amazing guests. Tasha, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tasha.